Hey you guys, it's Destiny back with another video, and you're watching the Decimania channel here on YouTube. And today I've got a DVD review for you today. It's actually a redo because the one I did previously sucked because of the background quality. I'm going to do a couple of these. I'm going to have to clean up some DVD reviews that I did a couple years ago, so I can probably update these eventually. I don't know, I might update my first Chris Jericho DVD review that I did too and get that one fixed, but yeah, there's definitely a couple DVD reviews that I want to clean up and redo because they just could have been done better, and this is one of them. Today we're going to be reviewing You Think You Know Me, the story of Edge. Great DVD. I wanted this when it came out, but I couldn't get it. But for some reason, I found this on Amazon. I almost grabbed this at FYE. And then I had to put it back because I didn't have enough money to get it when we were doing Christmas shopping at my old school in Romney. But I finally found it, and it's a very good DVD in the sense that, like, the documentary is good. I do have some issues with the matches, though. But before we get into this review, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss any new content. I upload weekly, although in a month or two, you probably won't see me at all, a lot. At least for a few weeks, because I'm going to be very sore and all that stuff from bringing my baby into this world. I'm very excited to meet her. And this DVD is very good. Like I said, I had some issues with some of the matches they put on here. I kind of wish they would have put more, actually. But that's just me. He does have a compilation set that I would like to get one of these days. But we start off with the documentary. And it talks about his childhood a little bit. They interviewed his mom for this, which was really cool. I believe she has since passed away, unfortunately. But yeah, they interviewed his mom for this. She sounds like a really cool woman. She cannot talk today. She sounded like a really cool person. He did not have a dad growing up. His dad left when I think he was born, or before he was born, or something like that. I read in his autobiography. But yep, it was just him and his mom, and they were kind of poor. They had to survive on whatever his mom could bring in that week, money-wise, because she was working several jobs, and she told a funny story about how he had this plastic guitar when he was 3 years old, and he really liked Kiss growing up, the band, and would pretend to be one of the members of Kiss with the guitar and stuff, stuff like that. And he says he got into wrestling because his uncle passed away. His uncle Gary was really young, 17, I believe, and he passed away in a ice accident on the road or something, is what they said. And I'm trying not to leave anything out, so if I miss anything on this, I apologize. I did not take any notes on this. But he was about the same age as me, like 8 years old or something like that, when he started watching wrestling. And that's about the same age I did, about 8 or 9 when I started watching it. And I think I was like 7 when I started kind of really getting into it, because Funny thing is, like, I had an Undertaker action figure when I was like 5. One of those dollar store ones. You know what I'm talking about if you had those growing up. But yeah, 7 or 8, we kind of both started watching wrestling at the same age. And oddly enough, the first wrestler that I really kind of took to and was like, oh yeah, that guy's kind of cool, was Edge, ironically. And it's just funny because Edge was my favorite wrestler growing up, and he's still one of my favorites to this day. They talk about him seeing Hulk Hogan for the first time and all this stuff, and then they get into his friendship with Christian Cage, and Christian tells a story about him going. He moved to wherever Edge was living at the time. I think it was Orangeville, and in Ontario. And he said that the teacher sent Edge out to try to get him to come into the school because he was really kind of shy, and they became best friends, bonded over wrestling, and of course the Ninja Star story, which is actually on this DVD and on Christian Cage's DVD, so if you want to go hear that story, go check that one out. And then they used to, go over to each other's houses. They made a wrestling ring and stuff out of a mattress, and they would use dryers and washers as their top ropes and stuff, and just makeshift rings and stuff. And they would wrestle like in the hallway between classes, and I think there was a hallway that no one used or something like that, and would wrestle in it. His mom, this is a really cool story. His mom, got him tickets to go to WrestleMania 6 to see Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior. And he's on the floor of the arena, and that was really cool of her to do because, like I said, they didn't really have it financially well, stable, and she was able to work extra hours or something, and she got them tickets, him and Christian, and they went and saw WrestleMania 6 in the Sky Dome in Toronto, which must have been very cool. I am jealous. I want to go to a WrestleMania at some point, but that was cool that they got to do that. And then there was an ad. He was watching wrestling one time. There was an ad for Sweet Daddy Steaky and Ron Hutchinson's school where they would train people to be wrestlers. And they said, you have to write an essay and explain why you want to do this. And Edge's essay won. I don't think Christian had the money yet to do it. And he went to college. Edge did too. He took broadcasting and radio, which they talk about on here. And, that's how that happened. And Edge got some free training. And then Christian later was able to get enough money from his student loans to be able to go to wrestling school. And they talk about giving Terry Guido the name Rhino. They said he looked like a rhino, so we just named him Rhino, and that's how that happened. He was on these independent shows with Edge and Christian. He talks about driving over this frozen lake to go to a show, and that's crazy. Like driving over ice like that in a car and stuff over a lake, and I think it broke or something. I don't remember what exactly happened. He told this story once, but I don't remember how exactly it went. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff that they had to do if they wanted to get into the wrestling business. Oh, let me back up here a little bit. They did start also setting up rings and stuff and the chairs and stuff for the shows because they knew an indie promoter in Canada, and he says, you know, he gave us permission to get in the ring for a little bit, and then they would get in the ring during intermissions, during matches, and eventually they had to stop because people weren't buying concessions and stuff, so we're watching Edge and Christian freaking wrestle in the ring during intermission and stuff. So that was a cool story. And I think we all have that kind of story where we're like in the ring for the first time, like even as just a fan, like, yeah. But anyway, he ends up getting advice from Bret Hart, and he talks about Bret just telling him, you know, you got something, stick with it, and that meant a lot to him. It gets a tryout match with WCW. I forget who it was against. But I don't know if it said who it was. But he got a tryout match for WCW. And then I think he was like doing some college classes or something, and he got a... If I'm misremembering this, I'm sorry. I just... it's hard to remember a lot of this stuff. But he gets a call from WWE and gets a developmental contract, or gets a tryout from them. And he goes up there, and they like him, and they give him a developmental contract. And then he, unfortunately, in his debut match on Raw, was it on Raw? Yeah. Was it Raw or SummerSlam? Maybe it was SummerSlam. He had a match with Jose, Lotharios, I think. I don't remember what the freaking guy's name was. It's Jose something. But he broke his neck or did he break his neck or did he fracture it? He did something, and Edge was like, oh crap, I just injured this kid on my debut. And he talks about them not really knowing what to do with him. And he talks about coming up with the name Edge on a New York radio station that had the name Edge in it. And he was like, oh, that sounds cool, because he wanted to have something kind of music related or rock and roll type related or something. And then him and Gangrel get paired up, and then Christian joins them, and they become the Brood. They're this like gothic vampire gimmick type thing or something. And then they gave the microphone to Edge because he was the one that people were drawn to in the group. You know, you always have that in factions or groups where you have that one person that you're kind of drawn to. So Edge was that person. And then eventually Edge and Christian broke off from Gangrel, and then they start feuding with the Hardy Boys, who are managed by Michael Hayes at this point. Or, wait. Yeah, and then they have that match at No Mercy where they have the Money Above the Ring, and they have the managerial services of Terry Reynolds. Also, so the Hardys ended up winning that, and then Mick Foley apparently told them backstage that all four of them, that you all just became superstars, and Mick Foley was the one that told them that. Next night on Raw, they get a huge standing ovation. I remember watching that episode of Raw on the network. I really wish that, I don't know why they haven't added all the Raws to Netflix yet. Like, I don't know what's up with that. Like, are they just not going to put any more up there, or are they waiting till next year or something? I don't get it. But like going back and watching those old episodes. But talk about the tables, ladders, and chairs matches that followed the ladder match. And they have another ladder match. It's Edge and Christian, the Hardys, and the Dudleys at WrestleMania 16 or 2000, as they would call it. I don't know. But Edge and Christian ended up winning the tag team titles. That's got to be freaking cool because, I can't even imagine. I can't imagine winning the tag team titles with my best friend who I grew up with, which, I don't really know that I had a best friend that I grew up with. Like, I don't really know, because, anyway, but, that had to be cool for them. And then they talk about all the stuff that they used to do as heels, 5-second pose and all that stuff. It was just hilarious. They talk about the spear that Edge did on Jeff Hardy in the WrestleMania 17 match, which many people have tried to duplicate over the years. It's just, you can't. You can't, because that's the original, and that's the best one. I'm sorry. It just is. And they talk about splitting Edge and Christian up and him going singles. They talked about his King of the Ring win, I think, a little bit, but I'll get into what all they didn't talk about. They didn't talk about his feud with... They really didn't go into detail about his feud with Kurt Angle. They just kind of briefly touched on it, which I wish they would have not done. I wish they would have went into it a bit more. They talk about his feud a little bit with Eddie Guerrero, and he talks about having neck problems in that match. He does something with a ladder, and he hears this crack, or feels this crack or something in his neck, and he goes to Dr. Youngblood, who did Steve Austin's surgery, Chris Benoit, Lita, I think Test even, maybe Rhino, but he goes to him and he has to have I think they said at first he had to have 2 fusions in his neck or in his spine. So he's out for a year. And he comes back the night after WrestleMania. Obviously they couldn't get into the before that, they don't talk about this because they obviously probably couldn't because of the Benoit situation. They did not talk about his Rey Mysterio's feud with Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle and the Guerreros. They didn't get into that at all. You could have at least mentioned him and Rey winning the tag team titles, but okay. But whatever. They had that awesome triple threat match at Survivor Series 2002, which is on Eddie's Cheating Death Stealing Life DVD if you want to go check that out, or it's on the network if you want to go check it out. Very good match. I have a review for Survivor Series 2002 if you want to go check that out too. So, yeah. There's a lot of stuff that they just didn't get into. They didn't get into any of his... They got heavily into his feud with John Cena, but we'll talk about that in a minute. I'm jumping around. He goes into his comeback, and he comes back after the night of WrestleMania 20. And, they didn't talk about this either, but he did win the tag team titles with Chris Benoit shortly after he came back. So Chris was a double champion at that time. And he talked about, I don't think they talked about winning the Intercontinental title from Randy Orton, but he did. And then he goes to Toronto, and they're kind of booing him, and he's like, okay, that's weird. So they kind of turn him heel, and then they get into, oh, this is fun. They get into the feud with, they get into Money in the Bank first, and then the Matt Hardy feud. So he didn't even want to be in the Money in the Bank ladder match at WrestleMania 21. Like, he was like, it's just another ladder match. Why are you putting me in another ladder match? I've done these. I think the only singles match he had up to that point in WrestleMania was against Booker T at WrestleMania 18 because he missed WrestleMania 19 and 20. He was in tag team matches at WrestleMania 16 and 17. So yeah, like, he was like, I want a singles match. And Jericho came to him and be like, would you just shut up? You might win the thing. Like, chill out. And he ended up winning it and holding the Money in the Bank briefcase. I get into his feud with Matt Hardy, and that got really personal. They didn't they didn't shy away from anything in this. I mean, except for the Benoit stuff. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Here nor there. I cannot talk. Sorry. So what happened was, I guess, Matt was dating Lita at the time, and Matt was at home with an injury. Lita and Edge were on the road together, and they kind of just started talking. Lita ended up splitting from Matt Hardy, and Matt found the phone that she had and, you know, all that stuff. We all know how that happened. And Edge announces in this TV that he had regret over that, and I think he really beat himself up over it. And people were giving him and Lita crap because, why'd you do that? Which, yeah, they shouldn't have done that, but, you know, he seemed like he was really remorseful for it. And Matt kind of responded in the way that he did, and Edge was like, you know, I kind of don't blame him because, you know, he was reacting how he thought would, you know, help him feel better, and how they ended up working together, all three of them, for this feud was crazy. Like, I don't know if I would have been able to freaking do that with somebody that had done that to me, but as far as I know, they're all kind of good now, I think they're all married or something like that. I don't know about Lita, but I know Edge and Matt are both married and stuff. Edge ended up marrying Beth Phoenix. We all know that. And Matt ended up marrying Rebby Sky. And, you know, Christian and a couple other people discussed, you know, like, we were friends with both these guys. Like, it was kind of awkward. Just, Edge kind of felt ostracized by the locker room, and, you know, he said he felt really bad about what he did. They go into his Money in the Bank cash in. Oh yeah, they had recorded comments from Matt Hardy on here too. They go into his Money in the Bank cash in at New Year's resolution. Is it Revolution or Resolution? Revolution, I think. I don't know. But he cashes in at that pay-per-view after John Cena won the Elimination Chamber. This is uncomfortable. Then they get into the freaking, y'all remember this? The live sex celebration that Edge and Lita had on Raw the next night. So this happened. And apparently Lita didn't want to go through with it and really didn't even want to be unclothed for this. And they were like, no, that's how you gotta do it. It's gonna have to work like that. And that's probably just Vince and freaking John Laurinaitis or whoever being freaking creeps. Like, that wasn't even... Edge wasn't excited about it either. Like, well, yeah, like, you don't want something to happen, like, on live television, and moving on from this, I'm glad they only briefly touched on this. They get into the feud of Cena and how he ended up losing the title to, I think, Cena at the Royal Rumble or something. And he was like, why? Because they had to give Triple H his match at WrestleMania, apparently. But whatever. So then he wins it back. And then again, into the whole him slapping Cena's dad, and then, Cena trashing his hotel room. They get into the Long Island Sound incident where Cena throws him into the river. And it was just a lot. It was a fun feud. I liked that one. Going back and kind of watching that. Their Unforgiven match in Toronto at, that was a good match. Their tables, ladders, and chairs match at Unforgiven was very good. And then, they get into his feud with Batista a little bit. And I like what Jericho says on this. I'll just name some of the people that were interviewed for this, and then I'll tell you what Jericho said. It just freaking made me laugh. So Chris Jericho obviously was on here. Edge's mom, Christian, Rhino, CM Punk, Batista, John Cena, Zack Ryder, and Brian Myers, or Kurt Hawkins, or whatever. They were on here. Vicky Guerrero, Lita, Trish Stratus, a lot of people. Mick Foley. They talked about his hardcore match with Mick Foley that he ended up having at WrestleMania. Also, the year that he was feuding with Cena. They didn't really talk about him aligning with Foley exactly, but they just talked about the match, I think, that they had. Because they eventually did align, and they had a 6-person tag team match at One Night Stand 2006. It was Edge, Mick Foley, and Lita versus Tommy Dreamer, Terry Funk, and Beulah McGillicuddy. That was a fun match. But, yeah, they get into a feud with Batista, which was very good. I'm actually kind of disappointed because when we go through the matches later, you'll see why I'm disappointed in this selection. I mean, they're good matches, but they skipped a lot of stuff. They did not talk about his feud with Jeff Hardy. They didn't talk about that at all. Or his, getting drafted to SmackDown and stuff. And winning the world title. Or maybe they did. I don't remember. They kind of talked about his feud with Undertaker a little bit. They just talked about the WrestleMania match, which, that was a good feud. I liked that one. I think that was around the time I started watching it, and yeah, it was. But he talked about going to this cabin that he had rented up in the mountains. This was after SummerSlam 2008, and they wrote him off television when Undertaker chokeslammed him through the ring at the end of their match. I believe it was a Hell in a Cell match. And then, he comes back. They don't talk about his comeback at all at Survivor Series 2008, where he interrupts the match he steps into the match that was supposed to be Jeff Hardy, Triple H, and Vladimir Kozlov. Jeff Hardy basically ended up accidentally helping Edge win the title and all that. And then we all know what would happen the next month. But they don't talk about his tag team run with Chris Jericho at all. They don't talk about his feud with Kane and Paul Bearer. They don't talk about any of this stuff. They don't talk about his Achilles injury either, or coming back at the Royal Rumble and winning it in 2010, or his match with Chris Jericho at WrestleMania. They don't talk about any of this stuff. Like, what the frick? Why do y'all not talk about any of this stuff? They kind of show footage of him just at his home in Asheville, North Carolina, doing workout regimens and stuff, with bricks and all that stuff. And he's a very outdoorsy kind of person, he says. It's cool. I like seeing that. And then they kind of just get into his retirement. I mean, they talk about him winning the world title in 2010 at the TLC pay-per-view, but that's about it. They get into his retirement and, all that stuff. That really upset me. Like, when that happened in 2011, I remember where I was when I found out. I was at my cousin's, and I found out that Edge had retired because I didn't watch Raw for some reason that night. I don't know why. But he ended up telling me that Edge had retired, and I was very upset about that, and I didn't take it well. But then, I talk about the Edge Appreciation Night, and they had all his friends on there, and Christian Cage, and all those other people. They talk about his WrestleMania match with Alberto Del Rio, and how, he started feeling numbness in his arms, and all that stuff. But yeah, they didn't talk about any of the stuff that he did with Jericho or anything because, I don't know why, but what happened was they won the tag team titles at the Great American Bash, or at the Bash, and Edge got hurt, and then he was out for 6 months with an Achilles tendon, and he started feuding with Jericho. That I remember very well, because I was very invested in that feud. That's one of my favorite feuds to go back and watch, actually. The 2010s era kind of sucked in WWE, but that was one of the highlights of me watching it back then. Like, I really enjoyed that. But that's kind of the end of the documentary. I'm sorry if I left anything out or anything, but, he kind of talks about mentoring Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder, too, so that's pretty cool. They talk about his on-screen relationship with Vicky Guerrero. They can get into the Vicky Guerrero stuff, which actually I look back on fondly, because I remember watching that too. But they can't get into a feud with Jericho or anything. Like, what the frick? But yeah, the matches on here. I don't know what the bonus features are because I can't navigate those. So the matches on here, I think you have like 12 different matches or something. Disc 2, you have an independent show match at the Southern Indian Lake or something, I think is what it's called. I hope I'm getting that location right, but it was at a lake. It's Edge versus Christian Cage. It's actually, he was not Edge yet. He was Adam Impact. His real name's Adam Copeland, by the way. And then you skip right to his WWE run, and they don't even put his debut match on here or anything. Maybe that's on the other one. I kind of don't really like this selection of matches very well. I mean, they're good. They're kind of good. But I kind of wish they would have talked or put some more of the matches that they actually discussed on the DVD on here. They have the King of the Ring Fatal 4-Way Tag Team title match from 2000. It's Edge and Christian versus the Hardys versus Test and Albert versus Too Cool. I believe that was Rikishi and Scotty 2 Hotty, or it was Brian Christopher. I don't remember. But it was Too Cool anyway. They have nothing from 2001, which sucks. I kind of wish I would have put their WrestleMania match on here, but okay, whatever. I guess because the Hardys were in TNA at the time, and the Dudleys. But whatever. That's stupid to not put that on there. I mean, maybe this is his selection of matches and he didn't want to put that on there. I don't know. But they put his match with Eddie Guerrero from SmackDown, the No DQ match in 2002. This is where he injured his neck. They skipped to 2004 because he was out for a year. There, again, there's no tag team title matches on here with the SmackDown 6 or anything like that. But freaking, they put his match with Randy Orton on Raw. I think it was for the Intercontinental title, if I'm not mistaken. They have his loser leaves Raw Money in the Bank match, briefcase on the line, against Matt Hardy in a ladder match. And then they put his Unforgiven match with John Cena for the WWE Championship on here from 2006. There's a lot of time skips, and there's a lot of matches they could have actually put on here, but didn't. Like, his match with Mick Foley's not on here. But, whatever. None of his matches with Batista are on here. I think the only match we get from 2007 is on disc 3, and that's coming up. It's Shawn Michaels and Edge in a street fight on Raw, 2007. Then they have his WrestleMania 24 match, with Undertaker, which is fine. That should be on there. Then they just skip. There's nothing from 2009 or 2010. Maybe there's 2010. Yeah, because he has a match with Christian. That's right. Okay, sorry. Yeah, he has a Pick Your Poison match with Christian on Raw. The Fatal 4-Way match for the World Heavyweight Championship at Tables, Ladders, and Chairs 2010. It's Kane, Alberto Del Rio, Rey Mysterio, and Edge. They have the Elimination Chamber match from 2011. It's Edge, Rey Mysterio, Wade Barrett, Great Khali, Drew McIntyre, and Rey Mysterio. I think Drew's in it. Is Drew in that? I think so. Yeah. I don't know. I got most of those right. But doesn't matter. Edge ended up walking out with it anyway. And then they have the WrestleMania match with Alberto Del Rio, which would end up being his final match for 9 years. But that's the Edge DVD. Sorry if I left anything out or got anything wrong. I apologize. My brain's just not there right now. But I really enjoyed this DVD. Not the biggest fan of the match selection on here, but it works. But yeah. What do you guys think of this Edge DVD review? Came out a lot better than my other one did, quality-wise anyway, but that's just me. I'll see you guys, I don't know, maybe tomorrow if I can, and hope you guys enjoy Raw tonight. Special start time of 6 p.m., I think, so remember that, and I'll see you guys later. Enjoy this video. God bless you, and peace.